Saturday, December 6, 1941, Admiral Ernest J. King was nearing retirement after 40 years of service in the U.S. Navy. He had served with Admiral Mays in the North Atlantic during World War I. While in his 40s, he became qualified as a submarine skipper and won his wings as a Navy pilot, and also served as superintendent of the Naval Academy. An advocate of naval air power, he commanded the Navy's Pacific Air Fleet in the 1930s, thereby gaining knowledge of the vast Pacific regions. Then came Pearl Harbor. 8 days later, Italy and Germany declared war on America. It was a perilous and challenging time for President Franklin Roosevelt and for all Americans and our allies. Amid this crisis, it became clear to the President that expansion and reorganization of our Navy were urgently needed. But who could lead these massive efforts and help the President to deploy our Navy forces so as best to serve our nation and our allies? He thought of several distinguished admirals and knew most of them quite well. He knew that King, while brilliant, decisive, and marvelously experienced, was also strong-willed and volatile. Perfect. Just 15 days after Pearl Harbor, the Congress and the President named Ernest J. King Commander-in-Chief of all United States fleets. This position, never in our history before or after, was held only by Admiral King. In March 1942, the Congress and President added King's duties the historic post of Chief of Naval Operations. Over the next 4 years, the Navy and American shipbuilders responded in a manner almost inconceivable then and now. New ships of all classes, transports, and warships were launched, manned, placed in service, and sent to battle over and under the oceans of the world. The honors brought to our Navy and the nation in those days were legendary and belonged to all those who served. Admiral King had another duty to perform. He was one of a small group of U.S. military and civilian leaders who traveled with and advised the President as he formulated overarching strategies for military action in North Africa, the Pacific region, Europe, and Southeast Asia. In that role, Admiral King frequently interacted with civilian and military leaders of England, France, nationalist China, Russia, and the United States. The President relied heavily on King in matters concerning the Pacific theater. Most consider King to have been the principal architect of the Allies' strategy for defeating the Japanese naval forces and retaking Pacific territories. This role frequently placed Admiral King in opposition to the desires of other nations, especially England's desire to emphasize recapture of mainland Europe. King also supported that objective, but used the importance of applying a proper share of America's naval might to protecting Australia and New Zealand, to the sea war with Japan, and to the retaking Pacific territories which had been seized by the Japanese. Predictably, King advanced his views with vigor and the full force of his knowledge and position. At the risk of being ridiculed and criticized, King tirelessly sought to ensure that America's security and future were duly considered. He simply did not regard being liked as part of his job. He would have liked his New York Times 1956 obituary, which concluded thusly: "He was the man who could not be had." Admiral King's grandchildren, many of whom are here today, knew him to be a tender and caring grandfather. They wonder how he became all that he was, a young man who went straight from his high school to the U.S. Naval Academy and graduated second in his class. Where and how did he acquire his thirst for knowledge and his desire to succeed that lasted throughout his life? Who taught him so to love his country? His descendants wish me to say that much occurred right here in Lorain through his family, community, friends, the elementary and high schools which he attended and always remembered fondly, and they all thank you.